these are offer strategies that really any artist could pull off with a little bit of creativity, so long as you've got some fans that want to buy something. It's really just about taking a fresh approach to the products that you might already have or are considering to sell.
You are now listening to the Creative Juice podcast, brought to you by Indepreneur.io.
What's up, indies? Welcome back to Creative Juice. This is the podcast where we cover growing and monetizing your fan base and building a music career with marketing strategies that are working right now based on what we see at our music marketing agency and across our community of thousands of artists and bands. I hope you enjoy and subscribe. This is episode 361, and I'm your host, Jack McCarthy, and with me, as always, is Circa. Cirque, what's up, dude?
What is up, dude? Just kicking it.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm super excited about today's episode. I'm super excited to bring some interesting research that we did to bring this episode to life. We get a lot of questions from artists. I get a lot of questions from artists, and I'm sure you do as well, saying things like, what products do I sell right now, and how do I sell them? And really, what that question is at the heart of it is, how do I make great offers to my fans? And so what we wanted to bring to the show today was to talk about some of the top selling offers from our agency clients at our music marketing agency, IndieX, to give you guys some insights into the things that we saw selling well for them last year, generating hundreds of thousands of dollars and lots of sales to customers. And I think this will be an interesting episode because there's a lot of patterns in the products that are sold, and then some differences in the ways that they are sold and the messaging and the packaging and what actually makes them a strong, compelling offer. So I'm really excited. I think this is going to be a cool episode.
Yeah, I'm excited to actually get a chance to review all these.
Yeah, I think it'll be cool. I'm definitely pumped about it. And hopefully it'll give you guys a little bit of a sense of how to think about your offers in a new way. There's definitely some fun ones on here. Actually, some of these kind of surprised me as well. Like I said, there's some patterns, and then there's also some outliers that are pretty cool. So if you're down, let's jump into it.
Let's do it.
Cool. All right. I'm going to jump off with an outlier because I think this is an interesting one. It was the first one that came to my list, and it was one of the first ones that I wanted to talk about. And this is actually a tour-related offer. It's a VIP upgrade to tickets. And this was cool. One of our clients at the agency, we were working with them on helping market their tour, and they sold a lot of these VIP packages. And I think what was cool about it was they worked really hard in coming up with a VIP package for their fans for this tour that was interesting, and they weren't afraid to talk about it. They really gave us a lot of creative freedom on how we embedded all of the benefits to the VIP package into the messaging so that it didn't just seem like you're getting a lame meet and greet and that's it. And I think that this is something that a lot of artists can learn from, especially if you're considering doing some kind of VIP upgrade for the first time, is you can try to load it up with a lot of value. And they did a really good job of doing that. There was an acoustic performance that was private. There was an interactive kind of group Q&A going on. Obviously, there was the meet and greet with the photo. There was a laminate, which you see a lot of artists do. Some of the other stuff that they did that I thought was interesting as well was they included actually a map of the tour routing that was signed. So it was kind of like a nice souvenir from the road. And then also, and this is interesting for anyone who's like, I just love pumping out a lot of music, and touring is kind of the icing on the cake to getting that music out there. They also included, for anyone who bought VIP, they had a whole set of different tracks that had never been released. And they were kind of promoting this as like the exclusive sort of tour demos and B-sides that you couldn't get any other way besides being VIP customer.
Yeah, I think it's also cool because like we always talk about Ascension in the context of like giving people a more special experience, trying to create those one-off opportunities for purchase. And then we talk about bundles and we talk about really composing more VIP offers, but people don't really do it. And so to see it in the wild, I mean, not in the wild, it's the agency, but like, it serves as proof positive of like, look, we're not just saying this, like this is something you can do and it has a positive effect.
Dude, yeah, that's a really good point. And I think the challenge there is a lot of artists a lot of businesses, they want VIP customers and they want people that are going to spend more and they want ascension, but they don't want to do the work and add the value that actually makes for an ascended offer. Like, they don't make it cool. They don't make it really valuable. It's just another thing in the list of things that someone could get anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also the case quantity as a quality on its own. You can compose up enough smaller things that it starts to feel like more than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. This was a really good example of that too. They really laid on a lot of stuff. And obviously there was scarcity involved in it too. They weren't just opening up for an unlimited amount. I don't remember what the actual amount, it varied per show, but there was scarcity involved too. So there was even more value driven in that way. So pretty cool. That was definitely a strong offer. And like I said, a little bit of an unexpected one. I didn't expect us to talk about that today, but I was glad to hear that it was one that performed so well for them as we were rolling it through. The next one is actually for the same band, ironically. And this kind of kicks off a series of offers that have a similar sort of pattern. And I think you guys will find this interesting, but it was a vinyl offer for their record that they had out. And it was a new variant. It was a limited edition vinyl variant. They only pressed 250 of them. So it was a super limited run. They were never going to be repressed, and they were hand signed and hand numbered. And they did this twice. So there was two different variants, 250 each, hand signed, hand numbered, and never going to be repressed. And those sold really well. And this is something that we've definitely talked about before with other artists, and we've seen work really well for a lot of clients across the agency. So it's definitely something where if you've got a record already out and you're trying to continue to drive sales through that album, maybe you're like midway through a cycle or towards the tail end, this is a strategy that you can pull from to kind of breathe new life into a product with a very simple sort of strategy, you know, just get a new variant of that product and roll it out, and it can do super, super well.
Yeah. I think that also, like, it's easy to think like, oh, this is just something that could do with the help of an agency that's going to have the expertise here. But I think it really goes to show that, like, it's something that anyone can execute on.
For sure, yeah. And that's kind of the hope with a lot of these offers is, like, regardless of whether you're working with somebody like us at the agency or you're doing this for the first time yourself, you can learn something from this. These are offer strategies that really any artist could pull off with a little bit of creativity, so long as you've got some fans that want to buy something. It's really just about taking a fresh approach to the products that you might already have or are considering to sell.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get to other examples where this isn't a problem, but I know that there's lots of indies who are like, well, I don't have like inventory, you know?
Yeah, we'll definitely have some examples of that. Actually, there's some very interesting ones that I think can be kind of applied to that concern or question if you might have it. So stay tuned for that for sure. The next one is actually, this is an interesting one for any artist, for any of you that are listening that might have some accolades around a record that you're either in the process of releasing or have released in the past. We had a client who, an artist who was in the middle of a record release, and it was actually a #1 selling record on a chart position for quite a long time. And so this CD was incredibly well selling, and it continued to be incredibly well selling because we really leaned into the fact that it was such a high performing, strong accolades, chart topping album. We leaned into that in the marketing, and that kind of acted as a social anchor proof for new customers and potential fans. And that really helped drive the sales. And so I wanted to bring this one up because, one, it was just like an amazing sales offer for this artist. And it continued to drive sales for literally like months. It's been so good. We continued selling that record for like strong at scale for like well over a year. And so much of it was because of its initial success and then being able to talk about that success. So I bring this up to say, if you've got wins to share and you can put them out there as proof that what you're selling is legit, is cool, is worth having, is worth listening to, paying attention to, is worth being a fan of, you should talk about it. You should talk about it because that matters when you're going after fans, new potential fans that have never heard of you before. Sometimes you need to lean on that. You need to lean on the fact that something is relevant and that it's at the top. And if you can do that, man, it unlocks something special for you.
Yeah, this is another example. So rarely do, the agency gets to work with them all the time. And so rarely do we get to a point with an indie where they can execute on these sorts of things. So it's great to hear sort of that practical example of what sounds like a lot of theory to, I guess, most people just starting out.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I think that this next one actually might be interesting for artists sort of across the spectrum, whether you're just starting out and you've got maybe like a few customers, or you are, a career artist and you're really working towards growth and trying to find new offers for your fans and new ways to promote things, and maybe trying to fit in a little bit in like a singles market and figuring out how offer and product strategy fits in. One of our clients, actually, this one blew me away because I didn't even realize that this one happened as well as it did. Was one of our clients we ran a strategy for them around vinyl sales, but it was very specifically a 7-inch. It was a single. So if you've ever asked yourself, how do I promote products around a single release? This worked really well for them. It was actually one of their top selling products of the year. It was marketed as a 7-inch single around their single release, and it included a alternate version of the song. It was a limited pressing to only 1,000, I think, and it sold really well for them. And I think this was the first time that we ever did a 7-inch around a single release tied this way, offered this way, and that it did so well. So I was really excited about this one and excited to talk about it because it's not often that we get to pick apart specific products or offers around singles that, aren't just, soft goods a lot of times these days. But the 7-inch offer here for this band, it worked really well. Like I said, it was one of their top selling products last year. And I was really excited to bring it here to talk about it today.
Again, like this is another case where we don't talk enough probably about single release, right? We don't really cover comprehensive strategies for it. Rather, we like tell people like you can compose up from the strategies we do talk about. So you can infer like what a single release would go like if you know about sort of how we approach launches or how we approach releases in general. And some of it is to some degree like it's in our content framework for people just starting out. But it is something that the agency handles. It is something that can be more high level.
For sure. And I think it's worth mentioning here, like if you're getting started and you're wondering, all right, like I've got a little bit of a fan base that's starting to build up, but we're really not putting together a consistent packaging of songs. We're not doing EPs constantly, or we're not doing albums super constantly. So it's hard for us to figure out what makes sense as far as product and offer strategy when it comes to music. This might be a good one that you could pull from, even if you're a little bit earlier along and you're trying to give your fans something cool. Like I said, I was pretty psyched about this one with how well it performed, especially for this group. They have a super high sales rate. Their fans buy at a very rapid clip. They make a lot of offers a lot, very frequently. So the fact that this one sort of stood out as a performer amongst many offers that this band makes said to me, like, there are consumers of music that want this, that would like this kind of thing. It wasn't just because they were starved for some kind of sales offer. They weren't. This fan base in particular got a lot of them. So if you've got a fan base that is starved for sales offers and you haven't made an offer yet, and maybe you've got a single coming out and you're like, oh man, like I don't have anything to monetize with, but I've got fans, but I'm not ready to put a record out like a full length or an EP, this might be one that you could do.
Yeah, in general, like singles release protocols are like going to be more accessible for indies of all different advancement levels. But like this is a rare chance where you get to not only participate in something that's a bit more on the, just starting outside of like things you may learn, but also has examples in the agency of like expert execution.
Definitely. So the next offer that I wanted to talk about is similar to the CD offer where I was mentioning how the artist really leaned into their number one spot. But this is a little bit different. This band had an older record that had never been repressed. It was years old, and they did a repressing of it, and we marketed it limited edition. There was only a certain number pressed. And what they really leaned into here was It was storytelling, but it was not about them being at the top in this case, because again, it was an older record. And so if you've got an older record and you're going to bring it out of the vault and repress it, you can think about stories that you might want to tell about that record to make the narrative compelling. What this band did was they had actually gotten ripped off by their old label back when they originally made this album. And so bringing it back out, they told that story of how we got screwed over by our label. The first time that we released this, we're doing this repress. We did these extra things with it. There are some bonuses. And this is our opportunity to get it out to you guys in a way that feels good to us and doesn't involve us getting ripped off. And they leaned into that, and it worked really cool. And I think that's worth talking about because, again, if you've got older music and you want to sell it, and whether it's in circulation or not, like whether you have inventory or not, you can get it out there to your fans with a marketing message that has a story around it. And that's kind of the part of the packaging of the offer is this is why we are bringing this back for you guys. This is the story that we want to tell about it. And they told it really well and it worked. So narrative is really important here.
Oh, I think narrative is actually among the most important, especially for catalyzing like sort of a latent like audience. Like, you know, a good example is like legacy artists, right? You know, we actually had the pleasure of working with a member of the band, the 90s band. Was it Rusted Root?
Yeah.
And great dude, great band he's got now. But like, if you have that sort of dormant or latent legacy fan base, it doesn't take, you know, most of the marketing protocols we would run at the agency level. It takes to some degree good, like the right press, right? Because you just need to reactivate that memory in fans' minds and give them a reason to go check it out.
That's true.
So like obviously can be done with the marketing that we employ on a one-to-one communications level. But it's like one of those few instances where I would say that like PR is actually wanted, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Narrative's huge.
Yeah, and you're right. Like there's so many different ways to get that out there, depending on what it is that you're working on. You know, so if it's a moment in time kind of thing, like I think you're right. Or if it's like a relaunch, that is where something wide reaching that needs to hit blogs and traditional press. And if it can do it all at once with like a media storm, that's really powerful. And what's cool is you can then leverage that in digital marketing and direct response. Like it doesn't exist for no reason. If you can pair it in with your strategy overall, it can actually be really effective. It's just not always something that you want it to leave all by itself.
Yeah.
The next offer actually is really interesting because it wasn't a direct offer that was being made to fans in email marketing or in advertising or really anything like that. It actually was a bundle. It was a bundle of 2 CDs, and it was being made as an upsell, another record that was being sold. So what was most interesting about this is we decided to go with a volume play for this artist to say, okay, like, he has a huge discography, and we're currently selling his most recent record in a sales funnel. And what we did was we said, okay, we want to get the cart value up here. So instead of like trying to sequentially sell multiple upsells, which was working pretty well, let's see if we can front load a more expensive order bump, which is, you know, typically your first upsell product in a sales stack where you've got your first offer. So this might be like my newest album. You can get it here. It's limited edition, whatever the offer is. And your order bump is the first thing that they see on that page. It's typically a checkbox and it's usually a little bit more expensive. We had been selling a second CD as that order bump, but we said, okay, let's try something a little different here. And instead we said, let's bundle the next 2 CDs in this funnel together, give a slight discount on them, and see what that does to the take rate of this first upsell, and see if we can squeak out a larger cart value and more profit. And what do you know? It crushed. And it actually became one of their top selling products of last year, which was really cool. So there's a case to be made here for bundling records together, giving a slight discount to fans, and you might see people just wanting to pick them up because they can, especially if there's any tie-ins between the record, like thematically between the 2 albums or EPs, you can do a lot of damage there, kind of with like a complete the collection sort of approach. But this one was really exciting. I knew that this funnel was performing well, and to look back historically over the year and see that this upsell actually ended up like overtaking a lot of his other offers and products in his store was really exciting.
Yeah. And again, like it gets a little bit more complex when you have lots of offers or when you're managing a store to create special moments, I'll say. And so, yeah, it's also can be a concern like that doing so can sort of crowd out like what else you're doing. We've obviously found that like stores are like very ambient in terms of the sales they generate. So creating special one-off moments is like desired over just like allowing that ambient flow of sales, not to like worry that like you'll inhibit that ambient flow in so doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I definitely agree. You know, if you're selling in your store or in sales funnels, once you have something that's beginning to work and it's generating revenue for you, then you can start to do the work of like optimization of saying like, well, what if I moved this upsell somewhere else? Or what if I swapped out the product on the front end for something else? And this is the kind of work where this bundle offer really only existed because we started doing that optimization kind of work. You typically don't start doing that until you start to see flow through a funnel or a store or whatever it is that you're trying to sell through. Then once you do that, you can find these additional wins or opportunities to pull out a little bit more revenue and profit, which is cool. That's how this offer came to be. But it was great to see that like this kind of 2 for a discount sort of deal worked so well. So keep that one in your back pocket. It might be a good one to use, whether you're running a launch or a sales promotion or something else.
Yeah.
All right, I got 2 more for you guys. This next one is cool because we often get questions about crowdfunding and Kickstarter and things like that. One of our clients, a great band, they ran a Kickstarter, a crowdfunding campaign back in the summertime for an album that they were preparing to record and release. And they wanted to crowdfund it, which is cool. And it actually ended up becoming one of their top selling offers for the year, the crowdfunding campaign, which was really cool because crowdfunding campaigns can sometimes not go that direction, especially because sometimes the incentives for fans to participate in them aren't aligned. But what made this offer so strong was that the band was willing to make incentives and perks that honestly just weren't lame. They were good. There was like hang out with us in the studio time, get to sing on the record. There were test pressings. There was a ton of different stuff that made this more than just like, yeah, you can get an early copy or you can get a digital download early. I see so many artists that want to do crowdfunding campaigns, Kickstarters, what have you. And then they make the offers like the weakest, most limp incentives that you can find. And they wonder why fans don't want to take part in them. The best crowdfunding campaigns that I've seen have been the ones where you get creative with, especially the more expensive sort of perks involved, where people can actually come and be a part of your process. They can come into the studio. They can be on the record. They can be in the record. That's what really made this special. And so I want a hard line. That's what makes for successful crowdfunding here. That's why I wanted to talk about this one today.
Yeah. It's just like bonuses on any offer. The more creative you can get with the actual tier rewards, I think it only behooves you. It only serves you. Definitely having milquetoast rewards can make it much more difficult to hit your targets. So yeah, fantastic execution.
Yeah, this is another good example that ties in nicely to the VIP offering, right? The VIP ticket offering. It's like, look at the reasons that a fan would want to be involved in this. It has way more to do with the value that you're adding to it. The messaging of just like, come to a meet and greet with us or get VIP, which means nothing to no one. And, you know, with a crowdfunding campaign, like the message of like, we can't do this without you isn't enough anymore. There's so much of that out there. I mean, dude, there's products on the market that have nothing to do with music where it's like, if you think this widget that I'm building would solve your problem. I can't build it without you. Like, that's more compelling than like, we can't make our album without you, because then at least you're solving a problem. So that's why it's so important to actually provide something that makes fans want to get involved. I can't stress that enough. I've seen enough crowdfunding campaigns just absolutely belly flop. I can't stand it anymore, guys. Please, no more flopping crowdfunding campaigns.
Yeah.
I won't be able to sleep. Please.
Yeah. Last year, we purchased a license for all of our members for one of the more recommended crowdfunding campaign trainings we've come across. And then we touched it up, repackaged it, put it out. So all of our members now have access to that. And it goes over a lot of these specific nuances that we talked about. So definitely check that out if you're an Indie Pro member. It's free.
Yeah. And if you're not, come join us inside Indie Pro.
Join Indie Pro, dude.
It's great. That launch and release crowdfunding training is super, super good. So come check it out. You can't find it anywhere else. This last offer is an interesting one because it's different from all of the rest. And it's actually just around a sales promotion. One of the best performing offers for one of our clients, a solo artist, was actually a series of store clearance sales that they ran. They just needed to move inventory. They were like, we have a bunch of old stock. We need to move it, and we need to move it fast because I want to make new stuff for you guys, meaning their fans. He was like, I want to make a whole bunch of new stuff for you guys, and I'm really excited about it, but I have a bunch of old stuff and it's taking up space in my warehouse. I need to get rid of it. And so he did a series of advancing discounts where he was selling, a collection of these products at a continuously increasing discount. So for a few weeks, he was discounting it down a certain percentage. And then from there, he was discounting it down some more. And then from there until everything was gone. And this worked surprisingly well at generating a lot of revenue. And actually, it generated a decent amount of profit. And so I bring this up to say this was a scary one. I was actually like pretty nervous about them wanting to do this. I was like, I don't know, man. Like, you could just end up giving away stuff basically and making no money off of it. But there's two things to think about when you consider this. First off, he made a lot of money doing it, which was cool, like a lot of cash in. But there's two things to consider here. If you're thinking about doing something like this, one, you got to know your numbers. You have to know what your profit margins on your products look like so that you can say something like this and know that you're still going to make some more money, on the back. And two, once you know that, think about like, well, is this just like old stock that's sitting around? Am I not really worried about maximizing profit off of it? And I think this applies to a lot of artists kind of across the spectrum, is like sometimes you just have stuff that's been sitting and it's either you're going to make something off it or you're going to make nothing off of it. And that was a lot of the mindset going into this offer and how we pulled it off. And then the messaging again was like, I want to make new stuff for you guys, my fans, and I need to get rid of this old stuff that's sitting on my shelf. So this is how I'm going to do it. Big clearance, big liquidation. It's a retail play, really. It worked really well.
Yeah, super cool.
Definitely super interesting. One thing that I wanted to bring up here as we kind of bring this episode to a close is there's a lot of patterns here. A lot of these offers were related to music products. CDs and vinyl in particular really were kind of like the biggest category. And so you might be wondering, like, what about soft goods? You guys talk a lot about selling merch that isn't just CDs and vinyl. And what I want to bring up about that is what we often see more and more at the agency is that soft goods work really well to sort of like even out the peaks and the valleys in your launches and around things like vinyl represses or taking CDs out of the vault and repressing them, older records, things like that. When you can really get these big spikes, soft goods and sales promotions as well of any kind really work to even that out and kind of keep the revenue coming in and widening or narrowing the gap between peak months or peak weeks and lower months and lower weeks. And so I wanted to bring that up in case like anybody had questions about like, where do soft goods fit into this? How do I do that effectively? Why was there no top offers with soft goods? Well, like we're talking about artists, like music is a big thing, so that's number one. Like there's a lot of focus on music here, but that's what soft goods can do a really great job with. So keep that in mind as well. They can work really well to stabilize things. So I wanted to mention that, but I hope that this gives you guys some additional ways to think about your products and your offers, new ways that you can think about the packaging, the messaging, the narrative, and what you might do this year to bring in more wins in your online store.
Yeah, a lot of great examples here. And just goes to show you that, like, I think the difference between, you might look at it and say like, oh, well, they're a whole agency. They've got people who've been doing this for years. Maybe, their execution is a lot more complex than what I might do. But in a lot of cases, it just ends up being just actually executing on the exact same knowledge that we share in Indie Pro, coaches share with their Indie Founder, students. It's all kind of the same stuff. I think the difference here is that IndieX has an opportunity to execute on these concepts in an environment where we know there will be receipt of these concepts, right? Like, there's going to be an audience there to consume it. But that doesn't mean that it should be any different from how you execute on these concepts, because, that's how they get there.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Really, like, it's in many ways just about speed and manpower.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
That's it. So yeah, I totally agree.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for checking this out. We'll see you next time on Creative Juice. Go sell some stuff. Peace out, Indies.